Education Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
This time we are going to look at the scheme of work, or what we're supposed to learn in SS2 or Year 2 in our secondary school, senior secondary school, as the case may be. We are going to start with the external processes of landform development. External processes of landform development. Under this is just a continuation of what we have learned in our previous classes, like rocks, mountains, and what have you. So we are going to look at number one. Here we are going to talk about agents of denudation. Agent of denudation. Under the agent of denudation, we look at action of waves. We look at action of water. We look at action of wind. Then we look at action of glacier. These four actions formed what we call agents of denudation. To start with, what do you understand by denudation? Denudation can be defined as the act of reducing and leveling of the earth's surface, either by weathering. And these actions of waves, actions of water, actions of wind, and action of glacier, they constitute the agents of weathering, that is reducing and leveling the earth's surface. When the earth's surface is subjected to wearing and tearing away by these actions, what we are saying is nothing but weathering, because weathering is the breaking down of rocks into smaller pieces. When these rocks are broken down, either by waves, either by water, either by wind, glacier, or either mechanical, chemical, or biological process of weathering, what happens is that these materials are transported from the point at which the weathering takes place to another point entirely. So these external processes of landform development, we are going to look at how the action of waves, the climatic location where action of waves is prevalent, and what are the features, external features that are associated with waves. The same thing of water, the same thing of wind, and the same thing of glacier. Now, when we are talking about, let's take it one after the other. When we are talking about the action of waves, this action of waves is prevalent where? Is prevalent in the coastal environment. Coastal environment where we have water bodies, and waves is the movement of water on the surface of water bodies. This movement cause a lot of external features, external process of landform development. And some of these process is what we are going to discuss. Now, when we talk about action of waves is prevalent in a coastal environment. We look at the action of water or action of rain is prevalent in a tropical environment where we have high amount of rainfall. Then we talk about the action of wind. Action of wind is, noticeable in a desert or a semi-desert environment where the action of wind is prevalent. Then we have the action of glacier. Action of glacier is prevalent in a polar environment where 70 to 80% of precipitation is in form of snow. So we now know the geographical location of each of these agents of denudation. Now the next thing we are going to see is we are going to look at what are the features, the external process, the external features they produce. That is what we are going to look at. Let's take the action of wave first. Then we now talk about the action of wind. Then we look at the action of water or rain. Then we look at the action of glacier. Remember, all these are what are the agents of denudation. And to denude means to erode. Denudation, that is to erode, to sweep away, to carry something away. So all these agents, they carry materials, they transport, they carry, the transport, and they deposit. Now let's look at the action of wave. I said the action of waves is prevalent in a coastal environment. Let's look at number one, the terms that are associated with waves. Number one, we look at tides. Number two, we look at currents. Number three, we look at coast. Number four, we look at shore. Then number five, we look at beach. Number six, we look at backwash. These are the terms that are associated with the action of waves. When we are talking about action of waves, we are saying that this action is prevalent in a coastal environment. Let's look at tide, for instance. What is the meaning of tide? Tide is the alternate rise and fall of what? Of the surface of the sea, approximately 2 times a day. The rise and fall of the surface of the sea, approximately 2 times a day. When it happens, at times those people that watch, they say the tide has risen. So when it goes up and comes down, that type of movement on the surface of the sea is what we call tide. Then we look at the current. Current is the movement of the surface water of the ocean in a definite direction. The movement of the surface water of the ocean in a definite direction. For instance, maybe this is a water body, and you can feel or see the movement of water in this direction. This type of movement is what we call the ocean current. call it the ocean current, in a defined direction, in a definite what direction. So this one is the up and down movement, and it happens twice in a day. But in this case, we are talking about the direction of movement of water in a definite what? Definite direction. Then let's look at coast. Coast refers to what? Refers to the meeting point between land and the sea. The meeting point between land and the sea. For instance, this is the water body and this is the adjacent land. So where you have the meeting point between the water body and the adjacent land, here is what we call the coast. Is what we call the coast. Then, if coast is the meeting point between the adjacent land and the water body, then what is shore? Shore is part of the land that lies between the higher water and the lower water. The part of the line in the case of coast is a boundary between the water and the land, but shore, you are still within the water body, but the low land and the higher land of the water within the water is what we call the shore. Now we talk about what? We talk about the beach. The beach refers to the material deposited on the shore by the ocean. The materials deposited, you know, these materials most of the times they can form what we call coral reef. Some of them can decompose to form, you know, a sedimentary a sediment, which after much accumulation can form what we call a sedimentary rocks. And this type of sedimentary rocks is rich in minerals such as petroleum. Then finally we talk about backwash. Backwash, this is the water that suck back and retreat after wash. Like if you are very close to a very big water body, the water will move, surge into the bank of the river and also retreat. This going and come back is what we call backwash. Now, having known the action of waves and some of the terms associated with it, now let's look at the process of waves transporting its material from one place to another. It's as a result of the transportation or carrying moving materials from one point to the other that they produce a landform. Remember, we are dealing with external processes of landform development. Processes of wave erosion. Number one, we have corrosion. Number two, we have attrition. Number three, we have hydraulic. Number four, we have solvents. So these are the four ways that wave erode the materials from one place to the other. And what are the, you know, the landform, because our interest is the landform development. The landform development. One of the landform development as a result of this process is there is what we call bay bay is one of the landform development. Remember, bay is formed at the coastal environment. Then number 2, we have cape. Cape is one of the landform development. Then number 3, we have cliff. All these are the landform development as a result of the action of waves using this process: corrosion, attrition, hydraulic, and solvent, as a means of transporting the material from one place to the other. Now, that is what we can talk about the action of wave. Now, let's look at the action of glacier. The action of glacier. Glacier, as I said, is associated with polar environment, pole. If you look at the globe, this is the globe. Here is the north, here is the south. From this to this is what we call the polar environment. From the tropic, from the Antarctic circle to the south, and the Arctic circle to the north is what we call the polar environment. And this polar environment, the form of precipitation, that is PPT, is 70% is in form of what? Is in form of snow. Snow is a form of precipitation that form in a semi-liquid form. And the reason why we have precipitation in form of snow here is because of the distance of this north and the south pole from the sun. Because the farther away you are from the sun, the lower solar energy you receive. The lower solar energy you receive, it affects the rain formation. So the formation of rain around towards the pole, the north and the south pole, is in form of snow. So what happens here, when the snow falls, we call it the snow. When it falls and it converge, we call it ice. It will turn from snow to what? To ice. That is, as snow is falling, it will be piling up. After piling up for some time, the name is no longer snow again. It will turn to ice. Then, when temperature rises, this ice begin to thaw. That we call it thawing. Another name for thawing is melting. This ice begin to thaw, and as it thaws, it begin to what? Flows. The same snow that converged to form ice, this ice, when the temperature rises, melt or thaw and begin to flow. This flowing of this ice is what we call glacier. So it's just the form. It's just like you have your liquid water. Before you drink, is as liquid as it is. If you take it to a deep freezer and leave it for some time, the same water that is in liquid form will turn from a liquid form to what? To ice block. If you bring out the ice block, put the ice block on fire, the ice block will melt and begin to escape in form of vapor, the same water. So the same thing happen here. Snow turn to ice, ice melting and turn to what? To glacier. Now, as this glacier is flowing, it has what? It carries material along, and this material, they produce a landform. Like the case of waves, we look at some of the landform it produces. Number 1, we talk about bay. Number 2, we talk about cave. Number 3, we talk about cliff. Now, here we are looking at that of glacier. Now, what are the features produced by what? By glacier. What are those features? We are going to name them just one after the other. Number 1, we have what we call a U-shaped valley. A U-shaped valley. What we mean by U-shaped valley is that when you have This is a valley as a result of what? As a result of the eroding power of this glacier to create a U-shaped type. A shape of a valley looks like U. That is what we mean by U-shape. Remember, even if it is ordinary water flowing on the ground, that water must carry material, and as it carries the material, it either drag the materials on ground, it roll it, or the material will be jumping. As it either jump, roll, or drag on the ground, these materials will produce the features. We are talking about landform development on ground. So when this snow, ice thaw and it begins to flow and it's now glacier, this glacier, as it's flowing on the ground, it carries material. These materials are carried in different form. It can be dragging, it can be pulling, it can be jumping. So this jumping, pulling and dragging of materials on the ground can lead to the formation of what we call a U-shaped valley. This is one of the landform development, you know. Then it can also lead to what we call pyramidal peak. Number one, we have U-shaped valley. Number two, there is what we call pyramid. Sorry. For instance, remember these features, they are common in the polar environment. So where you have an ice thawing down, maybe this is top of the mountain, cold environment, then this ice or snow begin to thaw, begin to form a kind of a pyramid. That is what we mean by pyramidal peak. A pyramid. This type of pyramid is a feature that is produced as a result of what? The action of glacier. Remember, we are discussing the land, you know, form development as a result of this agent. The action of wind, remember, wave is associated with coastal environment. Glacier is associated with what? With polar environment. Wind is associated with desert environment. Desert what? Environment. That is where the action of wind is very, very prevalent. Wind can carry materials for as long as the ability can carry, because there is no vegetation standing, there is nothing that will stop it, so it carries the material to form a land form. It can be in form of loess, it can even create a features known as a oasis and other features as we are going to look at. But how do wind, you know, carry its material? How do winds carry its material, and how does it move the material from one place to another? Number one, we have wind can carry the material from one point to another through what we call deflation. To deflate, remember, you don't have vegetation, the place is open, so wind can carry any material and blow it. It can blow it, that is deflation. Blow it and form a standing features like loess. It can also by abrasion. One is deflation, one is abrasion. One is abrasion, another one is attrition. All these are the processes whereby wind carries the materials in a desert environment from one location to another. and this can lead to what we are discussing, the landform development. What are the landform development that are associated with wind? Number one, we have what we call Yardan. Number two, we have Loess. Number three, we have Zugen. Number four, we have rock pedestral. And so on and so forth. So these are the features that if you get to a desert-like environment where the action of wind is prevalent, you are going to find this type of landform development in a desert environment. So we talk about the action of wave. The action of water is prevalent in a tropical environment where temperature and rainfall, they are very high, because the higher the temperature, the higher the rainfall. So in a tropical environment, you have high rainfall, and once the rain falls, three things happen. Number one, erosion will take place. Number two, infiltration will take place. Number three, evaporation will take place. So as this water moves, it carries the material along, and these materials are either drag or jump, or the way the water seems to carry it. This process of carrying the material from one place to another can lead to a certain formation of land development on the surface of the earth. So that is what we mean by the land external processes of land form development. When we get to SS3, instead of looking at external processes of land form development, we are going to look at internal processes of land form development. Instead of looking at these external features, we'll look at what happened within. This is what happened outside, what we can see if we have the opportunity to see. But when we get to SS3, we are going to look at what happened inside.